All right, let's talk about something wild. Imagine you get a tax bill for a year that's already over. I know, it sounds crazy, right? Well, that is exactly what happened in one county in Tennessee, and it sparked this huge fight between local officials and the state. Today, we're going to break down how this all went down and who got stuck right in the middle.
Seriously, think about that for a second. It's the kind of letter that would make you do a complete double take. You know, you've paid your taxes, you've closed the books on that year, and then bam, a new bill shows up. For property owners in Rutherford County, this wasn't some hypothetical scenario. It was very, very real, and it kicked off one heck of a dispute.
So how on earth does something like this even happen? To get to the bottom of it, we have to go right back to the moment these bizarre notices started showing up and begin to untangle this really complicated chain of command.
Okay, so it all kicked off on February 10th, 2025. People start opening their mail, and they find these assessment change notices. But here's the kicker. They weren't for the upcoming tax year. Nope, these were for 2023 and 2024, years that were deep in the rearview mirror. This one move set the stage for a massive showdown. Well, as it turns out, this whole thing wasn't a local decision. Not at all. The order came from way up top, from a state agency that's in charge of overseeing all the local property assessments across Tennessee. So let's meet the key players in this fight.
So in one corner, you've got the local Rutherford County assessor. Their job is pretty straightforward. Figure out how much property is worth in their county. And in the other corner, you have the state's Division of Property Assessments, or DPA. Their job is to be the watchdog to make sure all the local offices are playing by the rules. Now, they're supposed to work together, but in this case, well, they went head-to-head.
Now, check out the timing here, because this is where it gets really interesting. The state DPA started telling the county to make these retroactive changes way back in December 2024. Then, they set this hard deadline in January 2025. But wait, the state board's formal, official non-compliance action against the county, that didn't even happen until March. The county was being ordered to do all this months before any official declaration was even made.
And this email right here, it just shows you the kind of pressure they were under. This was no friendly suggestion from the DPA. This was a clear, direct order to make these retroactive changes for 2023, and it came with a very firm deadline. The message was unmistakable. Get this done.
So you can imagine, facing all this pressure from the state, the Rutherford County assessor did what any smart official would do. He called his lawyer. And the advice he got back, well, it threw a giant wrench right into the state's plans.
So the entire legal argument really boils down to this one term, back assessment. Put simply, you can only go back in time and tax a property for a past year if it was somehow totally missed, if it, quote, escaped taxation. This is the legal trigger, the only way it's supposed to happen.
Okay, so the county's lawyer takes a look at the situation, and he sees, first off, that the properties the state was pointing at hadn't escaped taxation at all. They were already on the books, already being taxed. On top of that, to do a back assessment, you typically need some evidence of fraud, and the county assessor was clear. He'd been shown no proof of anything like that. The legal requirements just weren't lining up with the facts on the ground.
And that led to this, a total bombshell from the county's own attorney, put in writing just days after the state handed down its deadline. He said in no uncertain terms that the assessor's office literally does not have the authority to do what the state was demanding. I mean, that is a massive red flag. So, armed with this pretty explosive legal opinion, the county assessor goes back to the state DPA. And what happens next is a direct confrontation, all documented in a pretty critical email chain.
You've got the county assessor Rob Mitchell formally putting his concerns in writing. He forwards that legal opinion to the DPA director and says flat out that he fears proceeding would be inappropriate. He's really putting his neck on the line here, all based on the advice from his lawyer. And the state's response? It came back the very same day. The DPA director basically says, okay, we've seen your new opinion, but then just tells them to, quote, continue correcting the various issues. In other words, the order stood. It was basically, thanks for your concern, but do it anyway.
So what do? You're caught between your own lawyer telling you it's illegal and a direct order from the state telling you to do it. The county complied, but, and this is so important, they made it crystal clear for the record that they were sending out these tax notices under protest. They were following orders, but they were not happy about it and they did not agree with it.
But hold on, the story doesn't end there. Because once those notices actually landed in people's mailboxes, the taxpayers themselves got involved. And their actions? They led to another huge twist in this saga.
The property owners did exactly what they're entitled to do. They appealed. They took their cases to their local county board of equalization, which is this citizen board that's specifically designed to hear these kinds of disputes. And would you look at the result? For a lot of these properties, the state DPA had demanded they be reclassified as commercial, which is taxed at a much higher 40% rate. But the local citizen board, they sided with the taxpayers, and they reversed the decision, keeping the residential rate of 25%. A DPA director memo even admitted that the local board had changed most, if not all of them, right back. Wow.
So when you zoom out and look at the whole thing, this isn't really just about a tax bill, is it? It's about a fundamental conflict over government authority and what happens when two powerful agencies just have a complete standoff. So let's just recap the county side of the story. They argue they were ordered to do something their own lawyer said was illegal. They formally objected, they were told to do it anyway, and they complied, but under protest. And then, to top it all off, a completely separate local board agreed with the taxpayers and reversed the very changes the state had forced them to make.
This whole mess really leaves us with a huge question, doesn't it? When a state agency orders a local government to do something that it truly believes is illegal, who's ultimately on the hook? Who's accountable to the taxpayer? It's a classic case of being caught between a rock and a hard place. And in this story, the final say was left to the very people who were caught right in the middle of it all.